Hi, BC family. Welcome to your midweek devotion. This week, I listened to a song by Casting Crowns called Just Be Held, and I'd never heard this song before. And the lyrics just impacted me in a really strong way. And I wanted to just touch on some of those lyrics and dive into what I gleaned from them. So the lyrics read, "Hold it all together. Everybody needs you strong. But life hits you out of nowhere and barely leaves you hanging on. And when you're tired of fighting, chained by your control, there's freedom in surrender. Lay it down and let it go. So when you're on your knees and answers seem so far away, you're not alone. Stop holding on and just be held. The world's not falling apart. It's falling into place. I'm on the throne. Stop holding on and just be held." So first, just that opening verse to me is incredibly relatable. You're moving through your weeks, you're balancing life, you're doing everything you can, and then boom, you're hit with the unexpected, and not in a good way. And you're struggling to make it through your week now because now you have this other pressure. You're tired, you're grieving, you're in pain, you're angry, you're bitter, you're frustrated, you're sick. There's a myriad of emotions that can happen when life gives us the unexpected. And we say, "Okay, God, I want your best. I want your promises. I want your utmost and your highest move in this situation." But we're still moving through our week, balancing everything, pushing ourselves, trying to control, trying to fix, trying to make it all work to survive, right? And that very next verse says, "And you're tired of fighting, chained by your control," right? We are holding on. We are trying to control the narrative, hold on to the situation. And God says, no, let it go and just be held. Now you can say, yeah, I gave it to God. I'm being held. I gave it over to God. But there is way more depth than I gave it to God when it comes to that part where it says, just be held. Amy touched on this last week when she talked about the one thing. Being held in his arms on a daily basis means stepping into his presence, stepping into his arms every day. It's a daily commitment and allowing him to hold you through your situation. That's a daily thing, right? The book of Haggai really demonstrates how God wants to give us his best, but we have to live our lives in such a way that allows him to show us his best. So in Haggai 1:5, it says, "Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways." Another version says, "This is what the Lord of heaven's army says, look at what's happening to you." He proceeds to tell them that everything they're trying to do in the natural isn't helping them. If you read the 2 chapters, they plant, but they don't reap. They drink, but they're still thirsty. They put on clothes, but they're still cold. In other words, what they are doing isn't working. So he said, consider your ways. What can you do differently to change the narrative? So as we continue to read in Haggai, you'll realize that he wasn't sent to these people to help them. He was sent to these people to help them get their priorities back in line with what is pleasing to God. This group of people had misplaced their priorities. That's key. So the verse that says, "When you're tired of fighting, chained by your control," that's when we realize we have misplaced priorities. You can't put your schedule, your checklist, your desires, your wants ahead of the love you have for God, or your love for God and your passion to seek him. God wants us to seek him first, to stop holding on and to just be held. So in Haggai, their temple had been destroyed and they were told to rebuild God's temple, but they kept putting it off, right? They kept saying it's not time. They pursued their own agenda. And Haggai was there to show them that they stopped putting first things first. They stopped being held. The temple was still in ruins, which showed their procrastination and their neglect in worshiping God. I mean, that is so incredibly relatable to nowadays, right? This relates to us. It's so easy to go about our weeks procrastinating our time with God, pushing back our time of worship and pushing back that time of seeking him daily, right? In Haggai, they got lazy with the day in and day out stuff. They got lazy with their time with God, and it began to spill over into their relationship with God. Sometimes when we're so busy and we're just pushing through and we're everybody and everything for everybody, we could begin to push back our time with God, and that spills into our relationship with God. So I want to jump back into the song lyrics that I started with. The very next verses demonstrate what inevitably ends up happening when we stop prioritizing God and stop daily carving out that time with him and putting him first. And this is how it affects our relationship with him. So the verses say, if your eyes are on the storm, you'll wonder if I love you still. But if your eyes are on the cross, you'll know I always have and I always will. And not a tear is wasted in time. And not a tear is wasted. In time, you'll understand I'm painting beauty with the ashes. Your life is in my hands. So I often hear people begin to question. I mean, I've done it myself. You question whether God wants you to be healed or to be whole or to be prospering. What's happening is you're holding on. You're trying to control this narrative. You've lost track of putting first things first, and you're focusing on the problem and fixing it in the natural. And you're beginning to stop prioritizing God first, seeking him. And I'm not talking about just a quick chat, but actually dedicating daily time with God to just be held. That's when he says in that lyrics, it said, if your eyes are on the storm, you'll wonder if I love you still. That's how people start to get into that zone of, well, I don't know if it's God's will. They've lost track of him. Their eyes are off of the cross. Because if your eyes were on the cross and everything that Easter, this Holy Week and Easter means, you'll realize that he has loved you more than you could possibly know or imagine. So he's such a good father, and I'm just so passionate about that. So the book of Haggai is 2 short chapters, and it's written for us so that we can see where they went wrong and learn from their mistakes. 2 chapters. It's there to say, don't do this, right? Don't have misplaced priorities. And it says, stop and consider your ways. The question becomes, are we being held or are we holding on? So Jerry Savelle pulled out 5 things that we can learn from Haggai, and I found this article and I wanted to share this. He said, 1, we can learn to stop making excuses for not putting first things first. There's always a reason why you can't put God first. He said that those books teach us not to. 2, stop being selfish, thinking only of our wants and desires. 3, take a good look at where you have put the things of God on your list of priorities. What does that look like? When you wake up and you think about your day, where's God in that day? Where did you prioritize him? 4, stop being the reason that your blessings are being blocked. That's a good one. And 5, let God hold the highest place in your life now and forever. I encourage you guys to read those 2 chapters in Haggai. It really demonstrates those examples. And those are some powerful principles. And I keep seeing this connection to the song, right? When we are being held, then we are daily stepping into God's hands and letting his peace and his strength take the place of us trying to work it out ourselves, right? The good news is in Haggai, they did eventually follow God's plan. And in Haggai 2:19, it says, from this day, I will bless you. They considered their ways. They decided, okay, I'm going to prioritize my time with God. It doesn't matter how busy I am, what my week looks like. They were willing to be purposeful in their time with God, and God blessed them for it. So I want to end with a little bit more of that song. It says, lift your hands, lift your eyes. In the storm is where you'll find me. And where you are, I'll hold your heart. Come to me. Find your rest in the arms of God who won't let go. So when you're on your knees and the answers seem so far away, you're not alone. Stop holding on and just be held. Your world's not falling apart. It's falling into place. I'm on the throne. Stop holding on and just be held. Those lyrics were so powerful to me during this Easter week. Because Jesus rose again to be put on the throne, and he's there right now. And he's saying, stop holding on and trying to do all of this and just be held. It's what he gave his life for, so that we could be held. So I want to encourage you guys this week to just listen to this song. It's by Casting Crowns. And let the words paint the picture of you stepping into the presence of God and letting go of the hurt, the pain, the wants, and the what ifs. The why didn't it work? And just be held. Let him cradle you in his arms and hold you. Let his peace fill your heart and give you rest. But in order to do this, you need to consider your ways. Fix your priorities and prioritize your time with God every day. Stop holding on and just be held. Have a great week. Bye.